Well, here we are. This configuration of the North Node and the South Node, Jupiter, Pluto, and Mars, all in relationship to one another. That relationship is called a Grand Cross by some astrologers. I think normally that a Grand Cross would be 4 planets rather than to include the nodes, but it is a Grand Cross in one sense. And we've got 3 planets. We've got Jupiter, Pluto, and Mars in a T-square lying on the nodes. So it is a source of the highest level of tension that you get in astrology. And it includes Pluto and Mars. There's you wonder what will happen. The imagery of Pluto, we'll start with Pluto. Let's try and understand that. Well, Pluto just doesn't change its sign very often. Every 15 years or something on average, but it's very eccentric in its orbit, so sometimes it can be a lot longer, sometimes a little bit shorter. It doesn't happen very often, and when it does, historical changes occur. Now, we've had Jupiter squaring Pluto recently, and so we can expect those historical changes to be made known to us on a different level. And now we've got Mars opposing Pluto. That's going to energize the thing. Let's have a look at Pluto's recent journey in Aquarius. It's only been there for a few weeks. And immediately it went into Aquarius, the world started talking about GPT. We've got AI with us now. Now, we've had artificial intelligence for quite some time, but now it's spooky. Now they've got it to be so very good in its operation that the prediction is that a vast number of people will become unemployed. In the same way as occurred during the Industrial Revolution. Because of the machines of that age, the farming workers were looking for jobs, and they went to the cities to find factories, and they energized the Industrial Revolution, all the wealth associated with that. Here we have an exact similar metaphor where robots basically can take over human jobs. So humans are going to be looking around for work at a time when the supply chain of food is threatened, and there are wars, and there's climate change in the air, and the population of the world is going to start moving around looking for work. It's hard to imagine a more unsettled time than this. And yet we must, because this is just the first degree of Aquarius. Aquarius goes on for quite a while, but and in that time, the next era of our human history, we will see all the changes associated with Pluto and Aquarius, to do with technology, to do with social consciousness, to do with a rebelliousness against the old and an affirmation of the new. Pluto will bring that about, and it's just shown us what it can do. It's going to go back into Capricorn for a little while, and then it'll come back into Aquarius again, and then again go back into Capricorn, before eventually turning up in Aquarius a couple of years from now. So the the effect of that transit is clearly going to be huge. This will shake our species fully and thoroughly, and all the things that don't work will be challenged. Now, Mars is coming along and opposing Pluto. You think about that, Mars opposite Pluto. That doesn't sound very safe, does it? There could well be tremendous breakthroughs during this energetic period, but the idea of bringing Mars into the equation when Pluto, atomic Pluto, is in the formula. Mars, the angry warrior, Pluto, atomic power included, that feels uncomfortable. Thank goodness it's very, very quick. So if the threat passes it will pass in a day or two, but we will very likely have some unsettling news in the air at the moment. And this lines up with Pluto by square. And Pluto is moved into Taurus. So we've got, I meant to say Jupiter. Jupiter has moved into Taurus. So we've got a Pluto ingress, just gone into Aquarius. Now we've got a Jupiter ingress. Now, yeah, they happen every year, not more frequently, but nevertheless, Jupiter's Aries-like approach to life, which was confident, assertive, go for it, is now settling into Taurus. And there is one thing about Taurus which is very underlined, and that is that it really does what it wants. It's very hard to put a ring on the nose of a bull. The Taurus energy is, I want it, therefore I'll have it. And this image of the mountain stream, the first degree of Taurus, the stream just goes where it feels it wants to go. It's going to get to the ocean at some point, no doubt. And in the meantime, I fancy going there, I fancy going here. You know, this Jupiter energy is, I can, so I will. In Taurus, I really, really, really will. There's no question about it. Square Pluto. Well, Pluto-Jupiter square is going to bring about some kind of spiritual revelation, probably. Pluto changes things at root. And Jupiter has a lot to do with what we believe is our path to know of unity. So you'll have some kind of tension arising about the level of belief and the confidence that the powers that be that give us our beliefs, whether that's government or religion or any other factor, Jupiter wants to be free of that. And Mars is the energy that goes with that first degree of Leo, a case of apoplexy. In other words, this is a guy whose head is about to explode because he just can't get it done. You know, he's got himself into a tizwaz because he's got all of this energy and he's making himself apoplectic. And Mars is there. That's fire. That's fire in the extreme degree of an extreme sign of fire, Leo. And Jupiter is absolutely claiming its freedom and against that principle of Mars, whatever Mars wants, no, I'm not having that. And then Pluto's just saying, yeah, but the overlying force here is evolution of the species. And these three major energies are disagreeing with each other on some level. And that lies on the nodes. So the nodes are central to this in the sense they bind it all together. The South Node in Scorpio 4, this is to do with the youth lighting a candle. And it underlines the importance of ritual to bind our group together. So the essential meaning of the South Node would be the rituals that enable us to define and identify and bond with our group. Whereas the fourth degree of Taurus we spoke about a couple of days ago, this is the sense of the need for inner abundance if you want to have outer abundance. Now, our group, abundance. Not everybody can have abundance, so it will seem. Therefore, our group wants it. That will be in the air, that tension, and there will be a ritual around that. So there will be some people who no doubt feel threatened because they're just about to lose their livelihood to AI. And they will identify themselves as a group, our group, and they will ritualize that in some way. Whereas the teaching of abundance being an inner and personal, therefore, experience, you can feel abundant, you can have everything you want, everything you need in life if you just internalize it. That's not what they are saying. They're saying, no, there's a limitation on that, and our group wants it. That's the issue. The haves and the have-nots are going to get a little bit more well defined and upset with each other. Because if there's all of these job losses to deal with, those people that lose their jobs are not going to feel abundant. And that's because they haven't actually detached themselves enough from the outer things that they believe give them abundance. Even on the level of food, if you have this inner sense of all will be well, I have faith in nature, in myself, in God. If you have that faith in abundance, then you won't worry about which group you're identifying with. However, that will be the polarization. And the opposite polarization is whether or not Pluto's Aquarius, gentle way, intellectual, there's no violence in Aquarius, or Mars's fiery, we need to act, we need to fight for our rights, that all of the revolutionary riots that are going on in the world at the moment, they will be energized by Mars on this question now of job security and therefore food security at a time when the planet is not looking forward to its increase in food security. This is a time of threatened famine that all of this grand cross is occurring. So what can we do? Well, be quiet. Don't get involved in all of this. There will be an upset, and it will be serious, no doubt. There always is somewhere in the world. That level of prediction isn't particularly clever. But I think what we must understand is that the upset in the world, very likely, presumably, Russia and Ukraine will be in the news. Very likely, AI will be in the news. And there will be identified an angry mob on the one hand, and the more philosophical sort of argument on the other. This will be in the air. And so we have to really get a sense within ourselves of how we're going to cope with what's coming. Now, what's coming is a great awakening. The species is wakening up. And therefore, as we move towards the polarization, some of us want to waken up and practice our spiritual beliefs and philosophies much more clearly and identify ourselves with our group. And in this case, it's not our group are the ones with the abundance. In this case, it's our group are the ones who trust the future, that this is actually a good thing that's happening. There'll be that kind of group of people. And we're entirely okay with Jupiter in the realm of conjunction with this concept of abundance. We can see that actually this is moving towards greater abundance. But we need to go through this issue of not identifying abundance with things. That's been the problem. Our species became greedy at some point, or at least the leaders did. The common folk are not. The common folk are just getting by and being happy with that. It's the leadership. It's the 5% that rule the money markets and the politics and all that. They're the greedy ones. And the people are coming to the point now where their sense of food security is threatened, and all that goes along with that, therefore their lives, therefore being a refugee, and these kind of really, really deep issues, they're up for grabs at the same time as the increasing fear that the machines are taking over, and that the real reality is that we live in the matrix and none of this is real. All of those issues are going to be under discussion in a fairly fierce and ferocious kind of way, no doubt, if Mars gets its way for a day or two at least. What are we going to do with that energy? Think of it not as a problem. Think of it not as a threat. Think of it as a source of energy. Very intense source of energy for demanding of us. And we have to understand this is the future now. We're walking towards a shift point. the Great Awakening. And that shift point will be, we're not going to get to that point as if it was a stroll through a summer woodland. We're going to get to that point when everything around us is blowing up and going wrong, and there's a lot of fear, and there's a lot of violence, and there's a lot of suffering and confusion, and all of these things are happening. But we have to walk through all of this, focusing on a heart-centered sense of trust in abundance, trust in security of the future, trust that everything's not only okay and survivable, that's not quite right. It's actually wonderful. This is what we want. And we have to remember that inner feeling that this is it. We're actually now claiming what we want. A spiritual life where the balancing between the heavenly and the earthly needs, this internalizes as a sense of abundance. And we identify with our set. We light ritual candles in order to just know who else is feeling the same way. We're collecting together in groups of people who know that the Great Awakening is occurring, despite the fact that people are talking about nuclear war and machines taking over and so on. They're all talking about that. And if that's what they want, then let them talk about it. What we're doing is feeling this sense of like awesome power that we're having to relate to. And we can be overwhelmed by that and choose to be powerless. Or we can interpret that as the light at the end of the tunnel. If you just see it this way rather than that way, if you find the words and the thoughts and the confidence and the faith to see what's going on as in our own best interests, then you have to deepen your trust. You have to breathe through situations, not get apoplectic, not fear the rise of AI as an alien invasion, but it's just like the Industrial Revolution. It will free us from manual labor to a significant extent as a species. People are working in wage slavery and slavery itself in various industrial countries in a terrible way. It's really, really terrible what's happening in Asia in terms of the people that make your clothes and the microchips and all of those people. They live a terrible life of slavery. And we're causing that to happen. And that doesn't have to happen. That can be replaced. This is a good thing happening. It's just change, and change is scary. But we have not to be scared. We have to be aware of the imminence of changes that we can't understand and have the faith to know that it's okay. Not think it's okay, not even affirm it's okay, just to know it's okay. Find that deep place within you which feels fine. This is just like a movie. This is the movie we're watching. Reality itself is kind of a lie, really. There is no such thing as shared reality, not at this level of operation. All we're doing is making up our own movie. So make it up the way you would like it to be, not the way you fear it could be. Make your choices a part of how you speak. You speak with confidence and faith and great excitement for the acceleration towards the Great Awakening that's occurring. And despite the fact that the majority of the world probably are fearful and pessimistic and sucking to them with their pessimistic fear all of the things that they're afraid of. No, don't go along with that group of people. That's not our set. Our set is the ones that calmly, quietly give voice to the optimistic interpretation of what's going on. However dire it might look, there is a way of seeing this as okay. As all of the things in history have proved. We're still here, and actually life is good. Everything turns around in your favour with this attitude of mind. So we're being examined. This is an examination. And you can fail, so don't get it right. There'll be a personal challenge for you, which will be slightly disguised on this question. Just have faith and be true. The first degree of Taurus, Jupiter, this is all about authenticity. Just do your thing and you'll arrive at the ocean. It won't be a straight line. It's not a canal. It's a stream, Taurus one. It goes its own circuitous way, and it goes the pretty way, you know. So go the pretty way. Don't think that you can fulfill your life goals. They've changed, you know. They've changed. We're not going back. The world has changed. The last 3 years has made it so obvious. It's different now. So just make the best of every single day by day moment, and we'll be fine.